just going to keep doing it.
Hello everyone, we're here inside Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, home of the Purdue Boilermakers, who just lost 49-10 to the visiting Penn State Nittany Lions. Lyle, I'll let you start this off. What were your biggest takeaways from the matchup?
I wonder if Tyler Warren is allowed to be a takeaway, but I guess I'll start there. Trio of touchdowns. I believe he had 6 catches for 81 yards in the first quarter, with a pair of touchdowns. Mackey, Heisman, whatever you want to call it. James Franklin is endorsing him for whatever award it may be. Best tight end, best player, whatever it is in the country. Tyler Warren's put it on display. Over 100 receiving yards. He had a 49-yard rushing touchdown. No, there's something like that. Some long gain, because Tyler Warren was the leading rusher today, because why not? He's been doing it all year, and this was just overall just a dominant performance by the offense. Drew Allar, very efficient today, 17 for 19. Didn't even play after the third quarter. Another efficient game from him. And just overall, everything was clicking. They had 72 players travel, I believe, because of the travel roster rules. I think 68 of them down in the game. James Franklin talked about how earlier this week, I believe on his Monday presser, that they have the opportunity to get some of these younger guys, the freshmen in, who can play out the rest of the regular season, not have to burn the red shirt. We saw a bunch of them today, and a bunch of them really stood out. Obviously, the veterans all talked about him in specifics post-game, but a couple that jumped out to me. Luke Reynolds, obviously, he's been playing all year, but he got his first career touchdown today. I think he had 3 catches. The future, I mean, you're seeing what Tyler Warren's doing now. That's the kind of idea that Penn State fans are in the national college football landscape is painting the picture for him down the road. And just overall offensive line, I saw Egan Boyer, Cooper Cousins get in the mix. Defensive side of the ball, a couple young corners. You saw Kenny Woosley, John Mitchell, Caleb Artis had a nice sack post-game. So Anthony Specca, just a whole bunch of guys that this is the future of the program. We talked about a bunch earlier in the season, how you can get them in these blowout games, get them some burn, and I think today was a perfect opportunity to do that, and they did.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised with how early they started to bring those guys in. Purdue's third offensive drive, half the defense was backups at that point already. Penn State had taken a 14-0 lead at that point, but still it felt very early to me. I think it was beginning of the second quarter when Penn State started to already cycle in some of its backups. Purdue burned them a little bit, drove down the field for a field goal, and then I think Penn State brought a little bit more of the starters back out for the next drive. There were also a lot of injuries, which kind of shuffled things up, because obviously it's one thing to be bringing in the freshmen in a blowout, but also when you're forced to, because a lot of the guys are going down across the board, that's a little bit concerning. And if you're Penn State, I think you had a couple missions going into this one, and obviously you wanted to win big, you wanted to get your younger players involved, and those are all check marks, but you also wanted to get out of this game healthy. You didn't want to sustain any major injuries to key players in a game against Purdue that in the grand scheme doesn't really matter. Obviously if they lose the game, it makes a big difference in the season, but as the lights go out on us, I think they're trying to kick us out, but we will power through for the rest of this video. But again, I was a little bit surprised with how quickly they went to some of those young guys, but a lot of those young guys did step up, at different positions across the board, offense, defense, special teams, everything like that. I thought, the running game, Nick Singleton looked really good. He left last week's matchup against Washington a little bit early, I believe third quarter, with some undisclosed injury, which James Franklin later told us was a short-term injury, and then we were able to see him at practice on Wednesday. He appeared to be fully healthy, but regardless, it was still kind of a question mark entering today if he was, a full go or not. I don't know if you would consider him a full go just because he had 7 touches.
There's no need to, even if he wasn't a full go, to have him in the game that long. Obviously, he did score a 10-yard rushing touchdown, but there was no need. Tyler Warren was the run game today, but there was no need because they didn't need to even play him that long. So I think this was a good opportunity to get Singleton some burn. Obviously, we don't know his full health status, but I think this was the kind of opportunity to let him get some touches, kind of work in. But there was no need to give him a full workload. Hello lights, and just let him play out, kind of see how it goes. And I think you saw it enough because they didn't really need him out there today. So I think it was a good opportunity for him just to kind of get involved with a little bit.
Yeah, I thought from a play calling standpoint, it was a great game from Kotelnicki. I thought he did some really, cute things that weren't too cute, just cute enough.
Well,
for the most part.
When you got Tyler Warren in motion, when Dawkins snapping the ball in between Warren's legs, that could have backfired in my opinion, but it worked.
But it worked.
So it's
and when it works, you're a genius, and today it worked, and so Kotelnicki's a genius. We had a lot of guys getting involved in the run game, like Lyle mentioned, whether it was, the quarterbacks, whether it was Tyler Warren, whether it was the running backs. And then once they, got past Singleton and Katron, Corey Smith got in and he got some touches as well. And then you look at the passing game, and obviously Tyler Warren had another monster day, but, Harrison Wallace and a couple of the other receivers, and then Nick Singleton, Katron Allen both got involved pretty heavily in the passing game and stuff like that. So I thought they got pretty creative with the way that they used guys. And, you didn't necessarily need to do that to beat this, Purdue team that now falls to 1-9 and has not won a game since August. You didn't necessarily need to break out your best stuff. This is, maybe something you should have tried out against Ohio State, but
I mean, and then they still broke out the Tyler to Drew back to Tyler. That would have been sick.
The triple pass or
double
pass to
it worked.
Tyler Warren.
Well, because one would have not, right?
Of course. Yeah. I think everything works against Purdue is kind of the moral of the story. This is not a great Purdue team, obviously. That's been, talked about for a while. The worst team in the Big Ten. One of the worst, teams in the entire FBS this year. They would probably be competing for the basement of the MAC right now if they were part of that. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. All this talk about conference realignment, maybe Purdue needs to be relegated down.
Wow.
After today's showing, it was not great, obviously, from the Boilermakers, and they've played a really tough stretch of games now. They had Ohio State last week. I know I think it's Oregon is coming up, Indiana, I believe, is coming up. I think they play all four of those teams during this stretch, so that's pretty brutal in and of itself. I think they end the season with Indiana. I think that's what it is because it's an in-state rivalry. But regardless, I guess we can flip a little bit more to the defensive side of the ball. Penn State had denied Dennis Sutton fully healthy today. He's played
80%.
80%. Okay,
80%.
breaking news.
80% workload as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 80% denied Dennis Sutton today, which is supposedly a lot better than what he's been the last couple weeks dealing with a lingering injury. But Abdul Carter talked a lot about it and how it kind of takes some of the stress off of him. Obviously, to have DDS on the other side rushing the quarterback, that's, a pretty big threat for opposing offenses to try and have to defend both those guys coming off of opposite edges. Abdul had another big day today, 5 tackles, 2 for loss. Definitely got into the backfield and created some pressure. James Franklin said after the game he felt like Abdul was getting held a lot today, which I tend to agree with Franklin's analysis there. From my perspective, and he said Abdul could have easily had 3 or more sacks, or he also could have easily had 3 or 4 more holding calls called on the offense there. And Abdul got asked after the game which one he would prefer. He said he would always prefer the sacks over the holding calls, which seems I guess obvious, but
checks out.
But wasn't getting much love today from the referees. But regardless, still had a pretty solid game. I think Penn State's defense played really well. Obviously, there were a few lapses. They gave up the field goal drive, and then they gave up a touchdown drive toward the end of the game. But both of those drives were with a lot of moving pieces, whether it was, because of injuries, guys going down, or whether it was because of, just the nature of the game and how it was a blowout. And Penn State was putting all these freshmen in the game. Obviously, that's when they were going to struggle a little bit and give up some yardage to Purdue. But even then, the Boilermakers only had 10 points today. Obviously 7 of it in garbage time, 3 of it came against, a lot of backups. And so it's obviously not something they're going to be proud of. They actually went to their backup quarterback. I believe that was just a performance. I don't think there was any type of injury there unless we missed something. I believe it was just performance related that Hudson Card was taken out of the game. And that kind of tells you, where Purdue's at right now as a program. So obviously if you're Penn State, you were expected to come in here, take care of business, blow out the Boilermakers. They did just that. So they survived the sneaky trap Boilermaker upset today. They survive. Maybe Indiana will be the team that falls to the Spoilermakers here. That would be pretty crazy. But regardless, Penn State moves to 9-1. They've got another road trip ahead of them next week at Minnesota. We'll be there to give you guys some more coverage after that one. But thank you for tuning in to this video with our post-game thoughts after a big blowout win for Penn State. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to help us out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.